So as you might be aware, I really enjoy riding my Onewheel. So I was very upset to see a video from Louis Rossmann, a former client of mine, detailing how FutureMotion has been implementing more and more restrictive digital rights management technology into their Onewheel products in order to, I guess, capture more of the repair market and therefore more of the repair dollars, the revenue from repairing Onewheels, under the guise of safety, under the guise of copyright, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and Trademark Law, going so far as to sue JW Batteries LLC in Texas when JW Batteries reverse engineered, is my assumption. But JW Batteries created some sort of chip or system that would bypass FutureMotion's technological protection measures on the Onewheel between the controller and the battery so that replacement batteries could be sold. What FutureMotion is accused of, and what appears to be the case, is they have implemented some kind of technological measure or DRM or handshake technology between their battery management system and their motor controller that disables the Onewheel, especially the new GT is the focus here, when you disconnect the battery. If you do any work on your Onewheel, you will probably end up disabling your Onewheel, and it will need to be sent all the way back to FutureMotion. I believe they only have one authorized repair center in the US. I'm not sure about Europe or the rest of the world. But the Onewheel is a fairly heavy product. It's light enough to carry around, but it's going to be costly to ship. So if you break your Onewheel and you can't repair it at an independent repair shop, or you can't repair it DIY at home, you're going to be sending it back to FutureMotion, and FutureMotion gets to be the recipient of your repair revenue. And if they can lock down the technology in the Onewheel sufficient that all repairs have to go through them, then they get all that revenue. And it reminds me very much of Apple, maybe even worse than Apple, in trying to make it difficult for an aftermarket repair service or an independent repair service. Well, now they've gone so far as to sue JW Batteries. This is back in August, but there's an upcoming hearing, and I'm making this video right after Louis Rossmann has made his video roasting FutureMotion for their anti-right to repair efforts. So FutureMotion has complained about JW Batteries allegedly violating copyright, the circumvention of technological protection measures, violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and violating trademark law in a claim called false designation of origin. Let's take a look at what they're complaining about here. It's actually quite short. Plaintiff FutureMotion markets, offers for sale, and sells throughout the United States and around the world the Onewheel line of self-balancing electronically motorized skateboards, along with related accessories, replacement parts, and merchandise, and operates an online retail store featuring the aforementioned goods at onewheel.com. An example of a user riding one of FutureMotion's Onewheel products is shown in the photo below. So here's a photo of a Onewheel XR, which is the extended range sort of second generation model that I ride. And before all of this DRM effort, people were heavily modifying their Onewheels. You could get sort of skateboard bumpers that would contain extra batteries. You could get a battery in a backpack that would, like, wire would run down your leg and extend the range even further, so you could ride your Onewheel even further than the 10 to 15 miles that they normally get. And it was actually a really excellent community. But I'm guessing FutureMotion saw the opportunity to make more money by locking all of that down and forcing anyone who wanted to buy those technologies to get those technologies directly through FutureMotion. So in other words, instead of repairing your Onewheel XR and adding an external battery pack, maybe you can't do that anymore, so you have to buy the new Onewheel GT, which has an extended range and a bigger battery and costs like $2,200 or something like that. So they get to make money off of you instead of you taking it to an independent repair shop or looking up do-it-yourself repair techniques and therefore making no money for Future Motion. Future Motion has expended significant time and resources developing and marketing its products, protecting its intellectual property rights. They've developed computer code, which resides in processors incorporated on the Onewheel skateboards to control various functions and safety features of its self-balancing skateboards, for instance, by monitoring the status of the skateboard, causing it to slow down or stop if it approaches an unsafe operating condition. Some of this is battery management technology, which all lithium-ion batteries need. My Onewheel does not use a lithium-ion battery, but uses a lithium-iron battery, and they still need battery management systems. So that's perfectly understandable. You should have various electrical safety monitoring equipment inside the thing. But that doesn't mean that those things can't be replaced or repaired when they break or wear out. Several of the important safety features of the Onewheel skateboards result from communication between the battery management system, which monitors the battery, and the main controller of the skateboard. If the controller receives information from the BMS indicating that the battery is approaching an unsafe state, the controller is programmed to take action to avoid potential rider injury. For example, if the controller receives information from the BMS indicating that the battery is approaching its maximum power output, the controller prevents additional power from being drawn to avoid exceeding the battery's safe power output capability. As another example, if the controller receives information from the BMS indicating that the battery is approaching a very low state of charge, the controller provides pushback that raises the nose of the board, essentially forcing the skateboard to slow to a stop, signaling to the rider to recharge the battery before resuming use of the skateboard. This part I agree with. You're riding a self-balancing, one-wheeled skateboard. If it suddenly stops because of an overcurrent condition or an undervoltage condition, you could fall off and hurt yourself. I hit a curb one time and severely hurt myself. Couldn't use my left arm for a number of weeks while some muscle up here healed, and I needed to wear my arm in a sling. And I could still type, but I'd be like holding my arm like this with my other hand, moving it around because I literally couldn't lift my arm. I hurt myself. So this isn't a situation like with a flashlight or a vape pen, where if the battery management system detects a overcurrent or undervoltage condition, that it just simply shuts off. You don't want it to just simply shut off. You want it to detect the condition before it becomes a problem. You want to slow down, come to a safe stop, and then allow the rider to dismount without injury. So I get that there is a safety concern here. Future Motion sends additional information to the controller that affects rider safety. This includes information regarding the electric current drawn from the battery, which can lead to excessive battery heat if the current is allowed to exceed the safe limits of the battery. That's, again, normal. You don't want the battery to overheat. That's what causes lithium-ion batteries to explode. The overcurrent or undervoltage condition causes battery to heat up. The battery essentially vaporizes, and then that vaporized gas is flammable, and that can ignite, causing these huge flames and things that you've seen in, I guess, what was it, the Samsung Note 8 or something was one of the ones that did it, and you've seen it occasionally with vape pen batteries and things like that. None of this means that an independent repair shop can't successfully repair a Onewheel, or that Future Motion would be responsible if an independent repair shop did not properly repair a Onewheel. So none of this should preclude right to repair or independent repair or other authorized repair shops. On all Future Motion's current Onewheel products, the controller is programmed not to allow the skateboard motor to operate unless the processor receives information from the BMS indicating that the battery is in a safe riding condition. Start to think about the Oracle versus Google case that was resolved 2 years ago, where Google had used Oracle's API, and that was ruled to be a fair use. So think about that API exchanging information between otherwise copyrighted systems. Think about this. A motor controller exchanging information with a BMS, the code running that might be copyrighted, but the information being exchanged is sort of like gears in a chain of gears. And that's not necessarily protected. It should be a fair use. It should be legal to reverse engineer that communication and then successfully use your own product to substitute the battery, for example, for an independent battery that complies with that communication protocol. Therefore, in the absence of circumvention of future motion's technology measures, batteries with cells disposed too densely and batteries reaching an unsafe power condition will not function with one-wheel skateboards due to the risk of battery fire. All valid safety concerns, but where is this copyrighted? How does copyright protect the function of a one-wheel skateboard? No, it protects the code. You can't copy the code. You can reverse engineer the function. This is not a patent complaint. This is a copyright complaint. This is a computer access complaint. And you'll see there's a trademark claim in here, and we'll get to that in a moment. Similarly, a battery approaching an extremely high power draw or extremely low state of charge will cause pushback to avoid rider injury that could result in the absence of these safeguards. For instance, if the skateboard motor were able to shut down suddenly rather than gradually or under the user's control. What did I just say? The required communication from the one-wheel BMS to the controller functions as a technological measure that controls access to the copyrighted software. I have never seen such a reaching and obviously unsupported claim. It took 17 paragraphs for them to talk about the functionality and safety features, and then they just jumped straight to that this is a technological measure that controls access to a copyrighted work. No. Technological measures that control access to copyrighted works are like the DRM on a DVD movie. We don't want you copying the DVD movie so easily. We don't want you copying your video game and providing free copies to others. We can debate the merits and problems with piracy over and over again, but what I can guarantee you is that copyright is not meant to protect the functional safety features on an electronic skateboard. It's meant to protect the code inside from being copied and counterfeits being made. And as far as I can tell, JW Batteries did not copy the one-wheel code. They made something that works with the existing interface. So it's very much the Google v. Oracle situation or Oracle v. Google situation. By preventing such access and control, if the skateboard is modified without authorization into an unsafe condition, such as with an unsafe or unsuitable battery. I don't know that anyone has proven that the JW battery is an unsafe or unsuitable battery. It's just not a battery that's profitable for one-wheel or future motion. The one-wheel controller is connected to the internet through a smartphone software application. The smartphone app monitors the state of charge of the battery, reports it to the user, allows the user to tune the riding characteristics of the motor, etc., etc. I don't know what that has to do with anything. It's a great feature, but monitoring batteries is 20 or 30-year-old technology at this point. Defendant is advertising and selling a computer processor chip intended to circumvent the future motion safety and technological measures described above. On information and belief, the JWFFM chip is an abbreviation for F future motion, indicating defendant's bad faith intention towards future motion. If I'm a judge and I see that you're starting off with these sort of ad hominem attacks, doesn't matter whether they said F future motion or not. What matters is whether they're circumventing a technological protection measure that effectively controls access to a copyrighted work. If JWFFM is copying the copyrighted work and it's not a fair use, that's copyright infringement. Copyright cannot be functional. It does not protect functions. It protects the code, which can become a function, so it can protect computer code, but it can't protect the function. If JWFFM reverse engineered this and made a compatible battery without circumventing technological measures and making illegal copies, then that's perfectly legitimate. They're allowed to. Let's check out the law, actually, and see for ourselves. The applicable law is 17 U.S.C. Section 1201, the circumvention of copyright protection systems. No person shall circumvent a technological measure that effectively controls access to a copyright-protected work under this title. There are various exceptions. I'm not sure that one-wheel batteries are an exception, but there are usually exceptions for interoperability. Down here, there is an exception for reverse engineering. A person who has lawfully obtained the right to use a copy of a computer program, such as by maybe obtaining a one-wheel, may circumvent a technological measure that effectively controls access to a particular portion of that program for the sole purpose of identifying and analyzing those elements of the program that are necessary to achieve interoperability of an independently created computer program. A person may develop and employ technological means to circumvent a technological measure or to circumvent protection afforded by a technological measure in order to enable the identification and analysis under paragraph 1 or enabling interoperability of an independently created computer program if such means are necessary to achieve such interoperability to the extent that doing so does not constitute other infringement. The information acquired through the acts permitted under paragraph 1 may be made available to others if the person from paragraph 1 and 2 provides such information or means solely for the purpose of enabling interoperability. The term interoperability means the ability of computer programs to exchange information and such programs mutually to use the information which has been exchanged. That looks an awful lot like what is happening here. I don't know how Future Motion can maintain this case. But that's actually not the basis on which JW Batteries has filed a motion to dismiss. So we're not actually going to get to see that analysis yet. But let's continue with the Future Motion lawsuit and see what's going on. There's only a few pages left. Defendant offers and sells its JW-FFM chip to customers through an e-commerce website. Here is the $50 chip, self-install for $50. They've made it clear that they're not affiliated with Future Motion. The JW-FFM chip allows one-wheel owners the freedom to upgrade their one-wheel XR or Pint with extended range battery options and much more. They have a video about how to install, etc. The chip is designed to be installed so that it intercepts communications between the one-wheel BMS processor and the one-wheel controller and to circumvent Future Motion's technological control measures by both altering and deleting information from the BMS that could otherwise indicate an unsafe riding condition. Copyright is not about functionality. Whether it provides an unsafe riding condition has nothing to do with copyright and technological protection measures protecting copyrighted works. I get the sort of virtue signaling, Your Honor, we need you to rule in our favor on this copyright claim because if you don't, people will die. That's not how copyright works. And frankly, if you're using copyright to protect your safety, that's not what copyright was meant to do. Copyright is meant to protect the useful arts by giving to their creators a monopoly over their expressive works, movies, music, sound recordings, books, artwork, sculptures, architectural creations, not safety code in an electronic skateboard. This is ridiculous, and to me, it's obviously an attempt to stifle the market. I would actually consider, if I was representing JW Batteries, of filing some kind of counterclaim for unfair competition, trying to use copyright law to stifle competition from JW Batteries products. It's a misuse of copyright, in my opinion, that I think everyone who's buying a one-wheel should really consider, like Louis Rossmann said, complaining to the FTC or simply not buying one-wheel products, which I hate to say because I love my one-wheel and I want to buy Pint X, I think it is. This is very disappointing. In this manner, the JW-FFM chip allows unauthorized aftermarket batteries to access the one-wheel controller and control the skateboard regardless of whether the battery meets Future Motion's safety requirements. That's ridiculous. That has nothing to do with copyright. For example, the chip provides altered information to the controller to intentionally misinform the controller about the type of battery installed in the product. This is extremely dangerous because the controller is programmed to draw power based on certain assumptions about the battery type. But is there an allegation that the JW-FFM battery actually is unsafe? And if that was the case, maybe a different claim could be made. I don't know what claim, but not a copyright claim. Someone providing an unsafe battery for an iPhone or an unsafe battery for a Onewheel would be liable for the consequences of doing so. Maybe that's also some kind of unfair competition claim, casting Onewheel in a bad light or Future Motion in a bad light by associating a counterfeit product or whatever. That's not copyright, though. The JWFFM chip could cause an unsafe amount of power to be drawn, causing battery overheating. So they're speculating. This is like the McDonald's Kitsch situation, where McDonald's allegedly defamed Kitsch by saying that their product could cause safety issues when there was no evidence of any safety issues. We're not seeing evidence of actual safety issues in this complaint because there aren't any. If Onewheel had complaints that these batteries were unsafe and caused fires and things, then they would be in here. Those facts would be in this complaint. Your Honor, it's not just speculation. We have found it to be true that these batteries cause fires. But I don't see that in here yet. Defendant teaches customers how to install the JWFFM chip. If that was illegal, it would be illegal under 1201. You're not allowed to sell circumvention technologies. This was the Bowser case with Nintendo. Nintendo sued Bowser, and Bowser was also charged. I realize it's a really funny coincidence that Bowser was arrested for circumventing Nintendo's technological protection measures, but that's the kind of technological protection measures we're talking about. The measures that protect video games from being pirated. The work is the video game, not a safety feature, not the interoperability of parts on your car or interoperability of parts in a machine or parts on a Onewheel. Defendant also offers to install the chip. That would also be illegal if copyright protected this. Also, defendant offers Onewheel replacement batteries which do not meet Future Motion safety requirements. They don't have to meet Future Motion safety requirements. They should meet the requirements of safety and of the specifications of the Onewheel. If the maximum current draw is 30 amps, then it should be able to provide continuous output of 30 amps without overheating, etc., etc., etc. That's part of specifying lithium-ion or other lithium-type batteries, but that is not a requirement of the law. A car might require a battery that can put out 400 amps to start the car. If you go and buy a battery that can only put out 100 amps, you might blow up the battery. You might not be able to start the car. There might be a problem. That's not a copyright issue. Defendant's chip poses a significant risk of injury, increases the likelihood of sudden and unexpected motor shutdown. If it did that, those people who were hurt would have a claim against the thing that caused that, and that would be JWFFM battery. I'm assuming that they specified their battery correctly, or else we'd be reading about the injuries instead of just speculating about them. This looks like trademark. Defendant offers a JWXR sticker, which incorporates Future Motion's distinctive stylized XR trademark. So defendant's use of JWXR, Future Motion's XR mark. That's the strongest claim I've seen so far, that maybe they need to change their logo. The stylized XR mark creates a false impression that defendant is affiliated with Future Motion, or that Future Motion sponsors or approves defendants or its product. Now, the standard for that trademark infringement is confusingly similar to consumers in the market for those goods, so there would be a trial before a district court or before the Trademark Trial and Appeals Board of whether or not consumers were actually confused. And yeah, this could be considered trademark infringement. That's the strongest argument here. So there's post-sale confusion by consumers, according to Onewheel. A third-party consumer seeing a Onewheel skateboard branded with JWXR would likely believe the defendant is the source of the skateboard. So they're accusing JW batteries of circumventing a technological protection measure, which we've gone over. It's basically a restatement of all of that. Now, they also claim a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and this is really interesting because the CFAA is only supposed to be for protecting computers from hacking, from unauthorized access. I don't know that that's what's going on here. Let's take a look. There's a controller which connects to the internet and is therefore a protected computer. Defendant violated it by intentionally accessing a protected computer without authorization. I don't see it. I don't see this. the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act is more about stealing data or unauthorized access of computers, not interoperability of functional parts. It spoofs the controller into accepting a different battery. That sounds functional to me. That does not sound like it meets the definition of the CFAA. And then the stickers. So the JWXR sticker probably confuses somebody. Whether or not that's enough for trademark infringement, I don't know. Then the response is a little bit less fulfilling. JW Batteries has responded with a motion to dismiss, but not on all those grounds that I just talked about. Instead, they've attacked on something that's a little easier to prove, and that's jurisdiction. So they're going to allege that JW Batteries is in Texas, doesn't market directly to California, doesn't have stores in California, doesn't have the minimum contacts necessary under jurisdiction law to make them subject to lawsuits in California. And I don't need to go over all this because it's a lot about jurisdiction. But the short version is that just because you have a product for sale on the internet doesn't mean that you are reachable in every state in the United States in a lawsuit. So it might be that this case gets transferred to Texas and then Onewheel has to pursue it in Texas, or Future Motion has to pursue it in Texas. This is terrible. This lawsuit is empty of legitimate meritorious claims aside from that potential trademark claim. That's the strongest claim, and that's a pretty weak claim, but it's the most likely claim to succeed, I think. Using copyright law to prevent people from repairing or modifying products that they purchased is terrible. We recently heard about Dymo, who's trying to prevent you from using unauthorized labels in a regular thermal label machine. We're not talking about some strange new implementation of labeling. We're talking about being able to print thermal labels, something that's being done for a long time, isn't covered by patent anymore. So Dymo is trying to turn to copyright and technological protection measures there in the form of DRM on labels. I'll cover that one separately. For now, let me know what you think in the comments below. I will link to Louis Rossmann's video. I will also link to the FTC's website so you can make a complaint if you feel like it. Future Motion should not be allowed to do this, and I think it's terrible that they're making a cash grab under the guise of safety against the right to repair and modify things that you own with no connection to any actual safety issue, just constant speculation. That complaint was dripping with speculation that someone's going to get hurt. Yeah, someone could get hurt by riding a Onewheel. It's a one-wheel skateboard. So yes, I understand that there's a little bit more of a safety requirement than, say, a battery for your phone. But a battery for your phone sits in your pocket. You don't want that to blow up in your pocket either. We saw the case with the battery that blew up in the attorney's pocket just when he was describing a situation about a fire and insurance case. That's another interesting case that I'll link to up in a bubble. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments below. And please, for everyone's sake, including mine, could you please write to Future Motion and tell them to drop this case and to allow their products to be made interoperable so we can repair them at home and modify them at home. We love our Onewheels. It's a great product. It does not need to be tainted by this corporate money grab BS. Let me know what you think. And that's today's video. Special thanks to my top supporters in March: John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Spirit Bear, Benjamin Hitov, Ugly Grill, Gutbrodj, Torpedan, ShadowTycho, Earthbound Star, PureMagma, TechTechPotato, Eric Tams, The Blood-Soaked Survivors, and Wyatt Calandro. You can support Lawful Masses on patreon.com/ljfrench, sponsors.com/law, through YouTube memberships, and through Floatplane subscriptions. Join me for our weekly live production stream on twitch.tv/lawfulmasses on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern US time. I hope everyone has a great week. I love you all. Bye.